There comes a moment in every life when the familiar begins to feel too small, like a room we've outgrown or a story we've already read. That moment, though unsettling, is not random. It is a divine whisper, a nudge from the universe saying, "Pack your bags, God is changing your address." Change is not merely an event, it is an invitation to step out of the known, to release the grip on what was, and to walk toward a destiny far greater than we imagined. Change is a curious thing. It often arrives unannounced, like a shift in the wind, subtle yet undeniable. One day life feels familiar, comfortable, predictable. The next there's a stirring, a gentle unease or a sudden disruption. That whispers of something more. This whisper, though easily dismissed, is often a divine invitation. It is the universe tapping on the shoulder of your soul, suggesting that it's time to move, time to pack your bags, not just in the physical sense, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It's as if God is saying, "This place has served you well, but there is more for you beyond the horizon." Most people resist this call to move. We cling to the familiar like a child clutching a worn-out toy, fearing that letting go means losing something essential. Yet, the essence of life is movement. Rivers flow, seasons shift, stars drift across the sky. Life by its very nature is dynamic. Stagnation, though deceptively comforting, it is not to uproot us for no reason. It is to propel us toward growth. Just as a seed must break through the soil to reach the sunlight, so too must we break through the crust of our routines and comfort zones. The divine invitation to change is often accompanied by discomfort. This discomfort isn't a punishment, it's a signal. A signal that the chapter you've been living is drawing to a close and a new one is waiting to be written. Growth never happens within the walls of certainty. It happens when the ground beneath you feels unsteady, when the path ahead is cloaked in mist, and when every instinct tells you to turn back. But it's precisely in these moments of uncertainty that transformation occurs. The universe, in its wisdom, orchestrates these shifts to align you with a greater purpose, a deeper truth. Imagine a bird that's outgrown its nest. The nest, once a place of warmth and safety, eventually becomes restrictive. The bird might resist leaving, afraid of the vast sky beyond, but the instinct to fly is stronger than the fear of the unknown. Similarly, when God changes your address, it's because the nest you've been living in, whether it's a job, a relationship, a mindset, or a city, can no longer contain the fullness of who you are becoming. The discomfort you feel is the soul's response to spiritual expansion. What once fit you perfectly now feels tight, because you are growing into a larger, more profound version of yourself. The call to change often comes wrapped in circumstances that feel disruptive. Perhaps a door closes unexpectedly. Perhaps an opportunity appears out of nowhere. Or maybe it's just an inner knowing, a quiet certainty that there's more to life than the routine you've grown accustomed to. When this call comes, the mind will resist. The mind craves stability, predictability, and control. But the soul craves growth, adventure, and alignment with a divine purpose. And when the soul hears the call, it knows it's time to move. Surrendering to this call doesn't mean abandoning reason or acting recklessly. It means tuning into that inner voice and trusting that the same force that planted the desire for more within you will also guide you toward it. The universe never issues an invitation without providing a way forward. But the path isn't always visible from the start. Like a traveler stepping into the morning fog, you must walk with faith, knowing that clarity will emerge with each step. So when you feel that nudge, when life starts to feel too small or too familiar, don't dismiss it. Don't cling to the old address out of fear. Recognize it for what it is. a divine invitation to step into a new chapter. It's not just about a change in location or circumstances. It's about stepping into a new level of purpose and potential. Pack your bags, release the familiar, and trust that the universe is leading you exactly where you need to be. Letting go of the old luggage is one of the hardest things we face when life calls us to move. The familiar, even when it's heavy, has a certain comfort. We carry beliefs, memories, and habits like well-worn suitcases, each one packed with the stories of who we've been. But when God is changing your address, those bags become a burden. What once served you in one season can become the very thing that slows your progress in the next. The journey ahead requires space. Space for new experiences, new insights, and new growth. And that space only becomes available when we release the weight of what no longer fits, the life we are stepping into. The past is seductive. Its certainty makes it feel safer than the unknown future. We replay moments, cling to old roles, and hold on to identities that are long overdue for change. But life is not static. It moves, breathes, and evolves. When we resist that evolution, we create unnecessary suffering. Holding on to the past does not preserve it. It merely anchors us to a moment that no longer exists. Imagine trying to walk forward while gripping a rope tied to a massive stone behind you. The harder you cling, the more effort it takes just to make the smallest step forward. Letting go isn't about dismissing the value of the past. It's about recognizing that its purpose has been fulfilled. Old luggage often comes in the form of beliefs about ourselves, about others, about the world. Some of these beliefs were inherited, passed down like heirlooms from family, culture, or society. Others were formed through personal experiences, particularly during moments of pain or disappointment. Over time, these beliefs become assumptions that shape how we see ourselves and what we believe is possible. When life calls us to move, these assumptions become barriers. I'm not good enough. Things never work out for me. Change is dangerous. These thoughts, though familiar, are illusions. They were conclusions drawn from limited perspectives, not universal truths. Releasing them means questioning their validity and choosing new beliefs that align with the direction you're being called to go. Memories, too, can weigh us down. We carry the pain of past failures, heartbreaks, and regrets as if holding on to them can somehow protect us from future hurt. But pain, when held tightly, becomes a wall that keeps out not just potential harm, but also potential joy. The heart, like a suitcase, can only hold so much. When it's packed with old wounds, there's little room for the new experiences that bring growth, love, and fulfillment. Healing doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means making peace with it. It means acknowledging the lessons, feeling the emotions, and then gently setting the memory down so you can move forward with lighter steps. Habits, too, become baggage. The routines and patterns that once provided stability can become rigid cages if we cling to them beyond their time. Every stage of life requires different skills, mindsets, and approaches. A caterpillar must release its form to become a butterfly. A tree must shed its leaves to prepare for new growth. In the same way, we must be willing to step away from habits that no longer align with the person we are becoming. This might mean changing how we think, how we respond to challenges, or even who we spend time with. Growth often requires that we leave behind not just behaviors, but environments and relationships that keep us tethered to a past version of ourselves. Letting go is an act of trust. It's trusting that the space created by releasing the old will be filled with something better, something more aligned with your purpose. It's trusting that the universe doesn't ask you to let go without having something greater in store. The discomfort of releasing the past is temporary. The weight of carrying it is permanent, if you refuse to let go. When you lighten your load, you find yourself moving more freely, more confidently, more purposefully. So when you sense that call to move, when the whisper of change becomes too persistent to ignore, take a moment to look at the luggage you're carrying. Ask yourself, Does this belief, memory, or habit still serve the person I am becoming? If the answer is no, it's time to set it down. The journey ahead is lighter without unnecessary weight. Pack your bags, but only with the essentials: faith, hope, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. Everything else is just old luggage that no longer belongs in the next chapter of your life. The unknown is a strange and sacred ground. It calls to us with both promise and uncertainty, whispering of possibilities we cannot yet see. Yet, for many, the unknown is a place of fear. It feels like stepping into a vast, unlit forest with no map, no compass, and no clear sense of direction. The mind, wired for survival, resists this uncertainty. It craves familiarity, patterns, and predictability. But when God is changing your address, the path forward will often lead through the unknown. It's not a mistake. It's an essential part of the process. The unknown isn't there to break you. It's there to transform you. Human nature tends to label the unknown as dangerous. From the earliest days of human existence, the unfamiliar represented risk. Unknown territories, unknown creatures, unknown challenges. But in the realm of the soul, the unknown is where the greatest growth occurs. It's the canvas on which the divine paints the next chapter of your life. When we cling to what we know, we remain confined within the borders of our current understanding. We live in a world of recycled experiences, familiar outcomes, and predictable results. But when we step into the unknown, we open ourselves to fresh possibilities, to encounters and insights that can shift the trajectory of our lives in ways we never imagined. The unknown is sacred because it is the birthplace of creation. Every invention, every discovery, every breakthrough began in the unknown. The universe itself emerged from a vast, unknowable void. Nature shows us this truth repeatedly. A seed, when planted, doesn't know what it will become. It surrenders to the soil, to the dark unknown, trusting the process of growth. The caterpillar entering the chrysalis has no conscious awareness of its transformation. It simply follows the instinctive call to dissolve into something new. If nature trusts the unknown, how much more should we, as beings endowed with a sense of purpose and connection to something greater? But trusting the unknown requires humility. It requires acknowledging that we don't have all the answers and that we don't need them to move forward. The human mind is conditioned to believe that clarity must precede action, that we must know the outcome before we take the first step. Yet life, in its deepest truth, rarely works that way. Clarity is often the reward of movement, not the prerequisite. The path reveals itself as we walk it. When God changes your address, you may not know the new destination in full detail. What you do know is that the old address no longer fits. That knowing is enough to begin the journey. Fear of the unknown often stems from a fear of losing control. We want to predict outcomes, minimize risks, and guarantee success. But control is an illusion. Life, with its infinite complexity, cannot be controlled. It can only be engaged with, experienced, and responded to with faith and courage. The unknown strips away this illusion of control and invites us into a space of surrender. Surrender doesn't mean passivity. It means trusting that the same force that brought us this far will continue to guide us. It means believing that the unknown is not empty, but full of lessons, opportunities, and divine orchestration. The sacredness of the unknown also lies in its ability to reveal who we truly are. When the familiar is stripped away, when we stand without the crutches of routine and certainty, we meet ourselves in a raw, authentic state. It is in the unknown that we discover hidden strengths, untapped resilience, and capacities we didn't know we had. The unknown is a mirror that reflects both our vulnerabilities and our potential. It shows us that we are more adaptable, more creative, and more courageous than we'd believed. Stepping into the unknown is ultimately an act of faith. It is saying, I may not know what lies ahead, but I trust that what is coming is aligned with my highest good. It is understanding that the unknown is not a void of danger, but a field of potential. The old address, the familiar patterns, the predictable outcomes, those were the training ground. The unknown is the next level, the next chapter, the next stage of your evolution. So when you feel the nudge to move, when the safe and familiar starts to feel restrictive and small, recognize that you are being invited into sacred ground. You are being called to step beyond the limits of what you know and into a space where miracles can happen. Embrace the unknown, not with fear, but with reverence. For it is here, in the uncharted territory of life, that God's plans unfold and your true potential emerges. The unknown isn't the end of the road. It's the threshold of a new beginning. Faith is a curious thing. It is invisible, intangible, and yet it possesses the power to move mountains. Not because it changes external circumstances instantly, but because it transforms the person who carries it. When God is changing your address, faith becomes your compass. It becomes the internal guide that directs you through the unfamiliar, the uncertain, and the seemingly impossible. Without faith, the journey feels like wandering through a dense fog, with every step accompanied by doubt and hesitation. But with faith, even the most uncertain path gains clarity, not because the fog lifts immediately, but because you trust that each step matters. Faith is often misunderstood. People think of it as blind optimism or wishful thinking. But faith is neither naive nor irrational. It is the quiet confidence that there is a greater intelligence at work, a divine plan unfolding even when the details are unclear. It doesn't ignore reality. It simply sees beyond it. When life asks you to move, to step out of what's familiar and into a new chapter, your logical mind will seek guarantees. It will demand to know the outcome before you take the first step. Faith, however, asks you to move without guarantees, to walk forward knowing that the path will appear beneath your feet as you go. The nature of faith is such that it grows strongest in times of uncertainty. When everything is stable and predictable, faith lies dormant. But when the ground beneath you shifts, when familiar comforts dissolve, faith is awakened. It becomes the internal compass that points toward the next step. You may not see the entire path. It reminds you that if the universe has called you to move, there is a destination awaiting you, even if it remains hidden for now. Faith is often tested when we are forced to leave behind what we know. Imagine standing at the edge of a bridge that is cloaked in mist. You know you need to cross to reach the next chapter of your life, but you can't see the other side. The mind urges you to wait for the fog to clear. But faith says, step forward, and the bridge will hold. And when you do, you discover that the bridge was always there, waiting for your willingness to trust. It is in the stepping, in the act of trusting without absolute certainty, that faith reveals its power. There will be moments when fear tries to overpower faith. Fear speaks loudly with a voice that lists every possible thing that could go wrong. It will remind you of past failures, of the risks, of the unknowns. Faith, by contrast, speaks softly. It doesn't argue with fear. It simply invites you to remember what you've already survived. How many times you've walked through uncertainty and emerged stronger. Faith reminds you that if you've been called to move, there is a divine purpose behind it. The new address isn't random. It is part of a larger plan designed for your growth, your contribution, and your evolution. Faith is also not a solitary endeavor. It is strengthened through connection with the divine, with others who walk a similar path, and with the deeper parts of yourself that know you are capable of more than you think. Prayer, meditation, reflection, These are not empty rituals, but practices that align you with the frequency of faith. They tune you to the voice of intuition, which often speaks when logic is exhausted. The beauty of faith is that it doesn't require perfection. It doesn't demand that you feel fearless every step of the way. It only asks that you move, even with trembling hands and a heart full of uncertainty. Faith says, it's okay to be afraid. Just don't let the fear stop you. And with each step taken in faith, the fear loses its grip, and the path becomes clearer. When God changes your address, the journey will rarely follow a straight line. There will be detours, unexpected turns, and moments when it feels like you've lost your way. Faith is what keeps you anchored during those moments. It reminds you that divine guidance doesn't always come as a loud announcement. Sometimes it's a gentle nudge, a subtle intuition, a quiet knowing that urges you to keep going. Faith is ultimately an act of surrender. It is releasing the need to control every outcome and trusting that the same force that set the stars in motion is guiding your steps. It's knowing that you are not navigating this journey alone. There is a hand, unseen yet present, guiding you toward a destination that holds more purpose, more fulfillment, and more growth than the place you are leaving behind. So, when the call to move comes, let faith be your compass. Trust the nudge, step into the unknown, and know that the path, though unfamiliar, leads exactly where you need to be. Stepping into the new requires courage. It demands a willingness to leave behind the familiar, to walk toward something that has not yet fully revealed itself. When God changes your address, you are being invited into a new chapter, a new level of purpose, and a new version of yourself. But crossing that threshold is not a passive act. It requires a decision, a conscious, deliberate choice to embrace the unknown and step forward with conviction. The new space that awaits you is not merely a different location or circumstance. It is a new realm of possibility, a higher elevation of your calling. And stepping into it means letting go of who you were to make room for who you are becoming. The first step into the new often feels the hardest. It's not the physical movement that challenges us, it's the emotional and mental leap. The mind clings to the old because it equates familiarity with safety. Even if the old chapter was marked by discomfort, struggle, or stagnation, it was at least known. The human psyche finds comfort in what it knows, even when that known reality no longer serves us. This is why stepping into the new requires more than just external change. It requires an internal shift. It requires the decision to trust that the unseen is not empty, but full of potential, waiting to be discovered. Stepping into the new also demands that we release the need for complete clarity. We often want every detail mapped out before we move. We want guarantees of success, signs of certainty, and assurances that the decision to move will lead to something better. But life, in its wisdom, rarely provides that kind of certainty up front. The process of transformation is not about seeing the entire path, but about trusting the direction of the next step. It's like walking through the mist of an early morning. The landscape ahead remains obscured, but with each step more of the path becomes visible. The clarity you seek is found in the movement itself. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to move despite it. Fear will accompany you whenever you step into new territory. It will whisper doubts, present worst-case scenarios, and try to convince you to turn back. But fear is not a reliable guide. It speaks from the limitations of the past, while the call to move comes from the expansiveness of your future. When you feel fear arise, it is not necessarily a sign to stop. It is often a sign that you are standing at the edge of growth. Fear signals that you are stepping beyond the edges of your comfort zone. And beyond those edges lies the new reality that God is calling you into. The new requires a posture of openness. It requires a willingness to be a beginner again, to enter a new environment with curiosity rather than control. When you step into the unfamiliar, you may feel disoriented at first. The old patterns won't apply as easily, and the new ones won't feel natural yet. This discomfort is a natural part of the transition. It's the soul's way of adjusting to a higher frequency, a greater capacity. If you resist this discomfort, you risk retreating to the old. But if you embrace it, if you accept the awkwardness and the uncertainty as part of the process, you allow the new to take root more deeply. Stepping into the new also requires a willingness to release the need for external validation. When you move toward a new chapter, not everyone will understand your decision. Some will question your choices, while others may try to pull you back into the familiar. This resistance isn't always malicious. Often, it's a reflection of their own discomfort with change. But the call on your life is not dependent on the approval of others. If God is changing your address, it's because there's a divine assignment awaiting you in that new space, one that others may not be able to see or comprehend. Trust that inner conviction. Trust the nudge that tells you it's time to move. The process of stepping into the new also teaches you the power of presence. When you move to a new address, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually, you can't carry the old mindset with you. The new chapter requires a new perspective, a fresh lens through which to see yourself and the world. This means showing up fully in the present moment, not endlessly looking back or anxiously projecting forward. The present is where the transformation happens. It's where you plant new seeds, build new relationships, and learn new lessons. The more present you are, the more quickly the new environment becomes familiar and aligned with your growth. Ultimately, stepping into the new is an act of faith, courage, and surrender. It's the willingness to say, I don't have all the answers, but I trust the one who called me to move. It's understanding that divine shifts are not random, they are purposeful. The new address isn't just a change in scenery, it's a shift into a greater version of your life's mission. So when the call comes, when you feel that inner stirring that says, it's time to go, don't hesitate. Step into the new with faith, walk forward with courage, and know that the path, though unfamiliar, is leading you toward a life richer, deeper, and more aligned with your divine purpose than anything you leave behind.